All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today. My name is Michael. I'll be your host for today. I am a cloud solutions architect from Massdriver. Massdriver is a visual internal developer platform that enables engineers and developers to deploy production-ready infrastructure and applications in minutes. During the webinar, some of my teammates are going to be in the chat answering any questions. And let's go ahead and get started. So today's going to be a brief webinar. We're going to be talking about a feature at Massdriver called Environmental Parity. We're going to be talking about what environmental parity is. We're also going to be covering how it works within Massdriver. And then we'll dive into how environmental parity can bring value to your projects running in Massdriver, whether you're using it to manage and simplify your CI/CD process, deploy your infrastructure and applications across multiple regions, or manage cloud infrastructure for your clients. So before we dive into this feature, I'd like to cover some of the terminology that I'll be using a bit. Environments. So environments are the workspace that a bundle will be deployed to. Massdriver doesn't enforce any governance on how you design your environments. Environments can be modeled by application stage, like production, staging, development, by region, for consultants, by clients, or even ephemerally per developer. We're also going to be talking about the idea of parity. So environmental parity within Massdriver is the uniformity of your project's architecture across those environments. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be covering how environmental parity works and how it brings value to the projects using the CI/CD pipelines. So let me describe a situation for you, and this probably will sound familiar. You have a working production environment. You have an application up and running, and you also have a development environment up and running too. That is similar to your production environment. You may have that development environment in the cloud, on premises, or even running locally. So you push an update to your dev environment, and everything looks great. You feel confident in your changes, and you're ready to push to production, so you push those same changes to production. Suddenly, your production environment goes down. You're then left wondering why. If everything was working in your dev environment, but when you push to production, everything broke. What happened? So maybe your dev environment doesn't have the same security policies as your production environment. Maybe while your production environment is running in the cloud, your dev environment is not. There's a lot of different situations that can happen. This is an issue that has plagued our industry for years, and environmental parity tries to solve it. Massdriver allows you to deploy production-ready infrastructure in every environment, whether that's your dev and test environment or your customer-facing production environment. So if you push a change to your dev environment in Massdriver, the architecture and therefore the resources are the same. The only difference is how you scale those resources. So let's take a look at how this looks in Massdriver. I'm going to go ahead and open my CI/CD project. As we can see, I currently have two environments in my project, development and staging. I'll go ahead and open up my development environment. We'll zoom in here and notice that I have a 3-tier web architecture up and running. I do want to mention that we do have a red cloud over my Kubernetes cluster. This is a different feature that we have at Massdriver for tracking alarms, metrics, alarming when those metrics cross a certain threshold. We can do a video on another day for that, but I just wanted to point out that we also support alarm and metric tracking at Massdriver. I'm going to go ahead and switch environments from my development environment to my staging environment. And as we can see here, I actually have an identical architecture. So I'd like to quickly diff my environments here So we can see that I'm scaling my environments either differently or the same. We can tell just by diffing these environments. This is also another feature that we have at Massdriver. So I'm diffing my development in my staging environment, and we can see that I'm deploying my virtual network in different regions, and my application is using different ports. I can also uncheck to view all of my configurations, whether they're the same or not. But I'll close that out here. If you'd like to learn more about our diffing feature, actually, we do have a feature showcase recording up on YouTube. I'll go ahead and throw a link to that in the chat. By diffing the environments, what I can see, I'll go back and open this up. We can see that like I said, my staging environment is using a different port, different region. Now let's say that I'm happy with where my staging environment is, and I'm ready to deploy to production. What I can do here is click on this plus icon to create a new environment within the project. I'm going to call this production, call it product, and then we'll select a cloud credential and click submit. So now that that environment is created, I'll go ahead and switch to it. And we do have an identical architecture that's being created for my production environment, although nothing is deployed yet. So what I can do now is click configure. I can select a region, either the same or a different one, and click deploy. And now I'm starting to deploy the exact same architecture in my new production environment. All right, so let's leave that deploying for a minute. For webinar's sake, let's say I want to add some storage to my architecture. So if I type storage, and we're going to look for an Azure storage account, maybe application assets. Maybe I'd like to add a storage account to my application to store some images. I can drag this over. We'll call this storage. Click submit. And now I have this storage account bundle on my architecture for my production environment that I can go ahead and configure and deploy. But what about my other environments? If I switch over to my staging environment, I can see that this same storage account was added to my architecture. So these resources are being synced across environments. And what we call this is parity of resources, but not scale. Adding or removing resources from an environment does the same thing across all environments within the same project. So this is another powerful tool if you're making modifications to your architecture within your project. Those additions or the removal of resources within a single environment will apply across every environment within a single project. All right, so now that we've covered how environmental parity can aid in your CI/CD pipeline, let's go over the benefits of a global deployment strategy. So with the environmental parity feature in Massdriver, deploying identical infrastructure across multiple regions is as easy as a few clicks. Imagine this scenario. Your production environment in the East US region is up and running without any issues. Now, the business wants to expand to Western Europe. Usually, replicating an architecture in a different region involves complex configurations and plenty of room for errors. Even if you already use IAC to manage your cloud infrastructure, and you can easily copy and paste the majority of your existing infrastructure code, you still need to manage the resources and then sometimes even the state. Massdriver simplifies this dramatically. Go ahead and switch back over to Massdriver. We'll go into my regional project. I have an environment already set up for East US. You can probably see where I'm going with this. I'm going to open up my East US environment. And we'll review my architecture here. I have a slightly different architecture I'm running an Azure App Service that's connected to Azure Cosmos DB Mongo, and I also have an Azure OpenAI service connected to my app as well. So I'm ready to open up an expansion to West Europe, or I can do Germany West if I want to. I'm going to create a new environment. Let's say Germany. I'm going to select the cloud credential and click submit. So now I have a new environment created for Germany. And I can go ahead and click configure on my virtual network, select Germany West Central, and deploy. So now I have the exact same architecture, and I'm just deploying what I already have in East US now in Germany. And I can also adjust the scale on a per region basis based on the logs or the findings that I'm seeing in those particular regions. I can adjust them without affecting any of my other environments. All right, so now that you get the gist of how environmental parity can aid with CI/CD and multi-region deployments, there is one other factor here that benefits a major sector of the tech industry, and those are consultants. So we're going to check out how this benefits consultants. If you're a cloud consultant, Massdriver takes the complexity out of deploying cloud infrastructure for multiple customers. Imagine you fine-tuned a cloud architecture for one customer, and another customer wants something similar, but with some configuration adjustments to fit their specific needs. Massdriver makes this insanely easy. When creating a new environment, you must set a default cloud credential. This can either be your own credential or one that is specific to your customer. Once set, Massdriver will deploy the infrastructure directly into your customer's cloud account, saving you a tremendous amount of time and avoiding manual errors. What's more, you can invite your customer into Massdriver as a user. They can view and, if necessary, manage their own infrastructure directly through the Massdriver platform. This not only adds transparency to your services, but also empowers your clients to take control when they need to. So you get the best of both worlds. You can quickly deploy production-ready infrastructure, scale it according to the customer's needs, and give them the tools to manage it themselves, all through Massdriver's user-friendly interface. Let's take a look at how this looks in Massdriver. So this is still deploying. I'll go ahead and let that run in the background. We'll switch back to my projects and go into my consultant project. I have an environment already set up for Acme Inc. They're one of my customers. They're very happy. We'll go ahead and open up the environment and take a look at the architecture. We have another three-tier web architecture, this time with a Kubernetes app. It's a Hello World app, and it's connected to the Elastic Pool MS SQL database, a storage account for application assets. Now, I recently had a meeting with Homer Simpson, the president of Duff Beer, and we're ready to deploy a similar architecture for his thriving business. I'll create a new environment and call this Duff Beer. And then I'll go ahead and select the cloud credential. Now we can see that I have multiple credentials to select from. We have Acme Inc., so I'm deploying their architecture straight into their account. And I also onboarded Duff Beer. So I'm going to select their credential. And now that that environment is created, I'll switch over to Duff Beer. And now I can start deploying this architecture into their cloud account, whatever region they want to use, whether it's West US, South Central US, doesn't really matter. And then now that that's deploying, what I want to do now is head over into the users section. And I can go ahead and invite homer.simpson@duffbeer.co. We're going to go ahead and invite them as a user so that they can go ahead and manage their own cloud infrastructure. Okay, So to recap of what we just went through, this was a very brief video. We delved into the definition of environmental parity, discussing its significance in ensuring consistent, production-ready infrastructure across multiple environments. We explored its utility in CI/CD, showing how it minimizes the disconnect between dev, staging, and production environments. We then extended that understanding to global deployments, demonstrating how to clone and scale environments across regions effortlessly. And then finally, we highlighted how Massdriver's features make life exponentially easier for cloud consultants by facilitating customer-specific deployments with the option for client management. This concludes the video. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll be sticking around to answer some questions. If you are interested in learning more about Massdriver, please check out massdriver.cloud. You can also reach out to me directly via the email on the screen, and then you can schedule a demo with myself and the business side to find out more about Massdriver. Thank you.